Sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing, balance. All of these senses and more are tools at your disposal. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Now today's episode comes by a recommendation and something pointed out by a one Stephen Ward, and Stephen, if you're watching, thank you very much for pointing this out. Last week's quick tips guide focused on the visual aspects of conveying information. If you're going into this ancient locale, these lost ruins, you can describe and convey a lot of information by talking about, the different dead adventurers they find, the different states of decay the bodies are in, the clothing and equipment they have, how it comes from several different eras or epochs. That will tell the players how old a place potentially is, how dangerous it is, and just it conveys a great deal of information and creates a sense of anticipation. But there are other senses for us to rely on here. We have sound, taste, smell. Even your sense of balance is affected. Your sense of touch. All of these things can come into play. If your party's descending down into these lost ruins, going through these ancient sepulchres, they can find a wealth of information in the description. Even though it's a fairly bare bones lost place, you can still describe how once they've come in from the desert heat, that just oppressive, overwhelming, scorching sun, once they descend down into these ruins going deep beneath the dunes, it's cool, it's quiet, it would be almost calming if not for the fact that every sound they make seems to reverberate around, and they can veritably taste the sense of the dust of ages as they walk through and disturb a place that has not been disturbed in some time, but by all appearances. And not only that, but that smell of going into somewhere that's cool and relatively dark. Even though it's dry, there's still that musty dust kind of smell that comes with it. And that description, just describing that, puts such a clear image in your mind, particularly when it comes to smell, because smell is so closely tied to our memory. All of that can conjure up incredible images for your players, even though you're describing the relative emptiness of the place, even though it's relatively empty and forgotten and lost, and so many things that could crumble away have done so already. It still is a wealth of information that makes the location that much more memorable to your players. If you describe a cityscape, we all know what that's like. If you go by a bakery and you smell well-made, freshly baked bread, that smell wafting out from the place, it's enticing and it's warm and inviting and triggers a lot of information for the players, a lot of memories. Or if they're going to a pocket location, a pocket dimension, or some alternate plane of existence where the laws of physics don't quite act right, you can describe how the players are fighting off a sense of unease or queasiness because gravity is no longer functioning properly, and that is creating a sense of dizziness or seasickness for them because things are not behaving normally and their inner ears are being messed with, or the horizon is such a mess that the visual distortion is causing them to become wobbly. All of that information ties together and conveys, that much more detail about the setting to your players, about the location to your players. And that's a very, very valuable tool, and it's something that does get skipped over. Although my goal is to keep these videos short, I did end up skipping that over last video in favor of describing things visually. So it's a very easy thing to forget, even for the most experienced of DMs. But what do you think? Have I covered this pretty well? Have I given you something to think on? Let me know in the comments down below. Hit the like button, or if you didn't like it, hit dislike and let me know what else I'm missing out on here. And certainly if you leave those comments, I'm more than happy to engage in the discussion. But if you haven't done so already, or you're just new here to the channel, go on down there and hit the subscribe button as well. Certainly, we'd be happy to have you here at the Gamer's Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you have yourselves a good night.